Well, thank you for having me. As you know, defense institutions are responsible for some of the largest and most sensitive areas of public spending. Yet, they often operate with less scrutiny than other parts of government. And this is why we need to perhaps shine a bit more light on that. Why is this? Because corruption in defense is not just a financial issue. It's a security issue, and it's because it can weaken military effectiveness, undermine public trust, reduce a country's ability to respond to threats. And we've seen this time and again in places like Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Nigeria, among others. So the research which Anthony was talking about a short while ago is part of the GDI, and it's the world's leading assessment of corruption risk in the defense sector. It's basically to examine institutional safeguards across those 5 risk areas he mentioned, with just the simple premise that strong governance, transparency, and accountability are not obstacles to national security, but rather they are essential to it.
I see.
So that's why we focused on that.
Well, I'm certain that many as well will be surprised, especially we've already viewed that kind of sector with some opaqueness. But what gaps did you identify as the variables that has led to this opaqueness?
Well, there are several of them. We have to start with what we really mean by opacity, and why should defense institutions also be transparent? Let me just start by saying that opacity does not mean every military activity, this critique of opacity, it doesn't mean that every military activity should be public.
Okay.
Of course, legitimate operational and national security information must remain protected. National security and transparency, however, are not competing objectives. They are mutually reinforcing. Rather, opacity occurs when there is insufficient information for Parliament, auditors, oversight institutions to understand how defense resources are allocated and spent. And this is where the GDI examines, and coming to your question, we look at indicators such as whether defense budgets are publicly available and sufficiently detailed, whether independent audits are conducted and published, whether Parliament can effectively scrutinize defense spending, whether there is transparency around contracts, suppliers, and procurement decisions.
Okay.
And this is where we fall short.
Well, so with this division, are we not just going to find a way to transfer or transport the areas that need to be kept quite secret to the areas that you require or you are recommending should be made public, for example, procurements? Are we not going to find a way around? Wouldn't it become more sophisticated?
Well, I think not quite. I think there are, first of all, it's through discussions like this where we put defense on the radar that the defense sector is not exceptional to other areas of public administration. Because for many countries, it's not just in Sub-Saharan Africa, it's actually across the world. The defense sector is viewed as exceptional and outside, the areas where we should scrutinize them. So I think discussions like this, putting this out there.
Okay. How much?
To start examining this.
I recognize that you say that discussions like this, but if you are able to itemize or maybe tell me how much at least should be made public. One area you mentioned stays with me, procurement, but at the top of your head, which areas do you think we should be considering?
Oh, let me just I was coming to that point, in fact, 1 minute, because one thing that I wanted to point out is that the line should, we have to draw a line between genuine and identifiable risk to national security and what should be made public. And there are guidelines for doing this. There's an international framework called the Global Principles on National Security and the Right to Information, the Schwann Principles. Unfortunately, not many people know about this. And they define the appropriate limits and a balancing test of government secrecy and what should be made, secret, what should be secret in terms for national security and what the public should know. So it defines the areas very clearly for good practice standards, whereby operational matters, troop deployment, for instance, we don't need to know about that. But then in terms of how the taxpayers' money have been spent, we need to know.
Doc, thank you so much. Dr. Ofori-Mensah, thank you for joining us today.